back to another episode of the Boropolis Podcast. As always, I'm joined with Nathan, and Nathan is talking to me from a different location today. Nathan, where have you changed? Where have you
Yeah,
gone?
I'm back at university now, back in Lincoln, down the country a bit from Boro, the homeland. So yeah, different location. Hopefully, being back down here changes Boro's fortunes.
Yeah, hopefully, Nathan. I mean, you're back at uni, how are you feeling? I ask you every week, and it's normally dependent on the Middlesbrough results. So I'm guessing it won't be a great answer from you here.
No, yeah, it was a bit of a shame the result on Saturday and the day as a whole. But yeah, I guess we'll get into it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it. Whether we want to talk about it again is a different question. But of course, we've got to talk about him. And obviously, we spoke just firstly last podcast, the review of the Sheffield United game and the preview of the whole game, and talked about the importance of following up the midweek result with another positive result going into the international break. It was Hull City, who hadn't won a home game in something like 357 days. Ironically, the last win at home in the Championship was against us. And in typical Middlesbrough fashion, they've done the complete opposite to what you wanted them and produced yet another of these away performances that are coming all too common this season. So Nathan, as I always do, I mean, I'm going to ask you about the team that was named, but I think the biggest talking point about the team when it was released at 2:00 was no Piero in the squad and us only having 6 substitutes. I mean, what did you make of that when you seen the team?
Yeah, strange one. I think Piero being omitted from the squad completely was the one that stood out the most. I was stood in the concourse at Hull, and it was a shame to see. Really, I think we all want Piero to be integrated into the squad, but it just isn't happening, unfortunately, at the minute. And with 6 substitutes, pretty much all of which were attacking midfield options, really. The only defensive player we had was William Cockolo from the under-23s, who'd been included in the match day squad for this game. So yeah, a strange one. I think we are struggling with injuries now. Yeah, I didn't quite realise, but yeah, now I'm just thinking about it. Grant Hall not in the squad either. So yeah, strange one.
Yeah, a strange one. It appears that, again, we're having injury problems, specifically in defence. And I mean, whether it be, as we've mentioned, just hideous luck on our behalf, or, you know, whether there is something more deep-rooted as to why we keep on picking up these injuries. I mean, we can't really answer that without inside knowledge. But yeah, it's certainly frustrating, these injuries. And I mean, if Piero is injured or if there's something, you know, more sinister behind the reason behind his omission from the squad, then yeah, we'll wait and see with that again. But, you know, just looking at the team, it was sort of a bad start to a bad day, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, uh, it's so strange because on the whole, with the starting 11, I thought, yeah, fair enough for keeping it the same team to Tuesday night against Sheffield United, which was a fantastic performance. Everything that we wanted to see was in that performance, really pressing from the front. We were defensively resolute. Sheffield United didn't have all too many chances, and we were hoping for more of the same from the same personnel that played on Saturday, but it wasn't to be the case, unfortunately.
No, it certainly wasn't. And obviously, we were both there. We both made the trip. We both had to suffer that disgusting weather. I
Oh, it was
mean,
horrible.
if ever there was a sign of a bit of pathetic fallacy, then that rain and grey skies certainly reflected the result, didn't it? So I think really now we've just got to get into the first half. The first half is action. I mean, when I say action, I mean 45 minutes of nothingness, really, again. Um, yet again, we lacked any real game plan, any real sort of strategy. And I mean, if you want to call smashing the ball up to Andras Spara and hoping that it sticks with him a strategy, then I suppose you could argue that we did have one. But yeah, I think that wasn't working. Whatever we were trying to do in the first half certainly wasn't working. And yet again, it just sort of, it showed to me that we're just lacking identity again. And obviously we're gonna go deeper into the game, but even after the first 45 minutes, I can't remember us really for one spell or even a 5-minute spell managing to get the ball down in play or create something. I can think of one chance that Spurrar, similar to Forest away, hit over the bar, but
Yeah.
really never really threatened. Obviously Hull brought a different challenge and were more direct and looked to play off Tom Eaves and obviously get the ball out wide to Keane Lewis Potter, who we highlighted in the preview. But again, the first half was, and we'll run the risk of saying this word for probably the third or fourth podcast in a row, abject. There was nothing to it, no game plan, no urgency, and just not a good watch, really, Nathan.
No, I'd agree with you with that. I think my overall assessment with that first half from both sides was it was two poor sides really just going toe to toe in who could kick the ball further towards the forward. Really, it was poor football from both sides. I think for the most part, Hull were pinning us back more than we were to them. I think we were more often than not almost set up in a back five with Tavernier at right wing back, Bowler at left wing back, and then Fry, Bamber, and Peltier's the three centre backs.
Got there in the end.
But yeah, it was a very poor first half, one that lacked any sort of real chances. I think, yeah, Spurrar, you were right in saying it was similar to Forest, and he didn't get that one quite right. He blazed it over the bar, but barring that, there wasn't really much to shout about in the first half, apart from Joe Lumley dancing to his chance. I mean,
Yeah.
there wasn't anything to shout about, was there?
Yeah, I mean, I tweeted after the game that I think one of the main highlights for me in the first half was just seeing the away fans try and keep up the inflatable dinosaur that someone had brought. And I mean, if that doesn't sort of symbolise and just reflect what a difficult time Middlesbrough are going through at the moment, I think, you know, often in the past when the inflatable dinosaurs start coming out, you know that something's gone seriously wrong. And obviously it was out in the first half. I think I only seen one or two, but yeah, watching the away end try and keep that up in the air was, I would say, probably a better watch than any of the passing that we managed to put together in the first half. And as you say, Joe Lumley, bless him, he loves it. I think he's taken on the role as a bit of an entertainer. Obviously, I think there was an injury at the time, and he just decided to sort of G the crowd up by jumping up in the air and getting a bit of something going in the away end, to be honest, because there wasn't really much else to cheer about.
No, it was a very poor first half. Yeah, I think the crowd was the best part, really, wasn't it? Trying to cover from the dismal weather, but we were all hoping, all 3,500 of us in that away end, for something in the second half, some sort of player to step up and make the difference. And we didn't really get that. We had a few chances, but it was again one of those where chances in the game would be limited, and it'd go down to which side took their chance, and Hull were the side.
Yeah, and just before we sort of go into Hull's goal, and a fortunate one at that, I think we've got to talk about both Spurrar and Tavernier's chances, obviously. Firstly, I think in order, it was the Spurrar chance, and it was a a fantastic bit of work from Matt Crooks down the right, sort of just found his inner Andres Iniesta, wriggled past a few Hull defenders and knocked the ball round the Hull centre half. And you were sort of just waiting from that away end just for the ball to hit the net when Sparrow went through. That wasn't to be the case. Obviously, he put it wide. And similarly, I think it was Duncan Watmore that started the attack prior to the Tavernier chance, went through one-on-one, was slowed down by the Hull defender, probably should have squared it to Sparrow, instead chose to pass it to Tavernier, and Tavernier again fired in the away end. I mean, both great chances. Do you think, I think it would be fair to say that at least one of those should have gone in, Nathan?
Yeah, I think we were almost waiting for Sparrow to finish that chance. And he's tried to whip it round the keeper into that near post, and it's just knocked the side netting and gone wide. And then the Tavernier one, as you say, it was a good chance. Watmore got played in, sort of cut back in field, and Tavernier and Sparrow are running in 2-on-1, and Tavernier opts to shoot, which is fair enough, but you've got to hit the target, and it was a good 20 yards over the bar.
Yeah, I think 20 yards might be generous, to be honest, Nathan. Yeah, but I mean, obviously it was two chances that we should have done better with. You'd like to think, obviously, with the finish that we saw from Sparrow and what he's produced so far in Middlesbrough shirt, that he would have done better with the chance he had. And obviously, we've come to expect slightly better from Tavernier as well. Obviously, didn't quite increase them goals or assists at the weekend, which is leaving a lot to be desired after your early calls about his return this season, Nathan. Yeah, so I mean, I think now we've got to go on to the first goal, and obviously in the build-up, Dale Fry was hit. I mean, from my perspective, it looked like he was hitting the chest, but I may be wrong. And then on his way up, he seems to have, by trying to almost get up and battle on, pulled his hamstring or quad. I'm not quite sure, but pulled something. He's managed to hobble back into the box for a few moments trying to defend the goal. And then by that moment, obviously, the ball had been played in. It was deflected out, and Keane Lewis Potter, who we mentioned, it seems to be a recurring theme in these podcasts. We talk about certain players in the preview, and then they go and score against us. So maybe we should just stop talking about players before games. But yeah, his strike, his volley, come crashing back off the post. And I mean, we talked about him being an entertainer, but it certainly wasn't entertaining seeing the ball cannon back off the back of Joe Lumley's head, and seeing Hull take the lead. And, you know, from the Hull fans that were there, obviously they celebrated, and it was sort of just silence in the away end, and probably a lot of thinking in the away end, people sort of assuming, is this going to happen again? Is this another one of these performances where we've missed our moments, we've missed big chances, and the other team have just punished us? The home side did. I mean, what was your thoughts on the goal? Unfortunate, or just bad defending?
Yeah, I had moments before the goal. We had a half chance with McNair. He had a shot that was saved, and I said to my mate who I was with, I said, this is just going to be one of those games where we've had chances that we haven't been able to take, and Hull will get a chance or two in these last 10 minutes, and if they put it away, it's game, set and match, really. And he did say it, he said, I bet you it's a proper fluky goal as well. And yeah, off the back of Joe Lumley, after it cannons off the post, we just turned to each other and just shook our heads, thinking, I can't believe it. Yeah, it's a typical Boro thing. We seem to have the better chances in that second half, and which would have been the better chances for the majority of the game, really. Although we certainly weren't at our best on Saturday, we did have those bigger chances, and we failed to punish them. And that's the ruthless nature of the Championship, unfortunately, where you don't take your chances, and the opposition will get an opportunity, and if they put it away, then you're completely on the back foot, and it left us chasing the game, really. And of course, the second goal comes from us trying to throw a few more bodies forward to try and get an equaliser, and they get through on the break. And Wilkes, to be fair to him, it's a fantastic finish, cutting inside of Lee Peltier and burying it in the bottom corner. And from then on, it was game done.
Yeah, game done. And just briefly, just before, obviously, that second had gone in. And to be honest, I think from being at the match and those who have watched it, it never really felt like we were going to equalise. I mean, the chance I was just about to mention, Paddy McNair's free kick, which was disallowed. And in all fairness, I still don't know why it was disallowed. I don't know if it was the wall that crept forward or something like that. A fantastic free kick. And then, of course, the retake was spooned straight into the away end again. So, I mean, that just sums up our luck at the moment. But yeah.
Just with the McNair free kick, there's a new rule being integrated in the last 12 months or so, which is no attacking players can be stood within, I don't know the exact measurement, maybe a metre of the wall. So Saliki, I think, was stood slightly behind the wall, but almost touch tight to the man on the end, and he did duck for McNair to play the ball over his head, which the player should know the rules, and evidently they didn't, because we wouldn't have been doing something like that if they knew the rules.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting you say that, because at the time I had no idea. I was sort of thinking, well, why is that being disallowed? But now you say that, yeah, I mean, it makes it all the more disappointing, to be honest. I mean, yeah, you'd hope that Saliki knew the free kick rules, but obviously not. As I was saying, I think from people that watched the game and people that were there, obviously, we never really had a big spell of pressure. Often when you go to these away grounds and you've got a big following, there is probably a 5-10 minute spell during the second half where, you look like you're going to score. There's a lot of pressure, probably a few corners in a row maybe, but that didn't really come. And obviously, as I say, once Hull had taken the lead, I never really truly believed that we were going to get back into the game, to be honest. I don't know how you felt about that, Nathan.
Yeah, I felt exactly the same, really. I think all day, even with the chances that we had, I think after that Sparrow chance, really, which is I think is probably the biggest chance of the game, and that chance goes begging, I think, just stood in the away, and you think it's not going to be our day today. And with him missing that chance, it was that thought for me. No matter what chances we'd get, I just didn't think we'd be able to finish anything. Even if we were still playing now, I don't think we'd have scored.
Yeah, I think you're right. And for me, part of the reason that we did struggle to cause, that spell of pressure that I was talking about was the late introduction of substitutes. And, I made a point to it again to the lad that I went to the game with. Uche, in fairness, the rain was coming down, it was cold, wet, windy. And I know, that's his job, is what Roy Keane would say. But Uche, bless him, spent the full of the second half warming up, trying to get the attention of Warnock, trying to do that little look over at the bench as if to say, are you going to put me on soon? And it just didn't quite work. I think him and Jones come on later on, and, it was a case of just little too late again, too little too late, as I say. And potentially it's one of the reasons why we didn't have that spell of pressure. But also, I think, without talking about individuals, again, it is probably that we have no pattern of play. We have no real sort of identity as being a word that's been used a lot recently. Obviously, talking about this Neil Warnock Middlesbrough side. And we had a few chances, and it's moments again. We've spoken about it countless times in this podcast. If we don't take our moments, which may be, the Matt Crooks header away at Derby, or the Matt Crooks header away at, I'm trying to think of the away game. They all seem to blend into
Coventry, yeah. Coventry, we hit the bar as well.
But yeah, there's these moments, and it just feels for me, just something I want to highlight. Obviously, everyone was delighted, and of course you should be when you're a Middlesbrough fan. When you're a fan of any club, if your team wins, you're on cloud nine. And obviously, after the Sheffield United game, we're all very happy. We spoke about, how good of a performance it was. But then, on reflection, looking back after the weekend's game, I did sort of think, well, did we play that well, or did we just have two good moments? Was there really a brilliant structure of the way we played? Was there, a tactical masterclass from Warnock? I don't think so. I think it was a bit of brilliance from Watmore and another bit of brilliance with a great finish from Paddy McNair. But Sheffield United had more than enough chances to punish us. And of course, if teams don't take the chances, then, it's up to you to take yours. But this is just a continuation of theme that, again, we've spoke about all season, where we have our moments, and if we don't take the moments, 9 times out of 10, we've been getting beaten.
Yeah, that's the nature of the division, unfortunately. It is really just fine margins, and I think it's fair to say that no matter who you play in the division, every side will get a chance in a game, and that's why you see so many shocks, I think, really in the division. If one side isn't on the game, there isn't enough between the sides at the top of the division and the sides at the bottom of the division for one side to absolutely batter another, because I think the quality level in the Championship is so evenly spread. I think anyone could beat anyone on any given day, just because of, if one team's not on their game, then anyone can beat anyone, as we saw with Coventry beating Fulham at the weekend. And yeah, it really does come down to moments, as you say, and we have had moments in pretty much every game this season, really, where we've had that one big chance that you can look upon, whether that be, as you say, the Crooks header at Derby, the 3 shots in 30 seconds away at Coventry that would put us 1-0 up. All these things you can look back on in hindsight, but it just seems to me that things simply aren't going our way at the minute with these moments, and we're getting punished for not finishing them, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we're going to move on to the questions from Twitter. I've been looking forward to it since the final result in a sort of sick, twisted way. I was interested to see what everyone else had to say about the game and how they're feeling at the moment. But just before we wrap up the whole game, and I didn't want to spend a long time on it, just purely for the good of our moods, really, Nathan, because, talking about that is certainly not going to make us feel any better. And, the whole game again, the Blackpool game, the Coventry game, the QPR game even, it is, again, a case of, is this down to, I'm playing devil's advocate here, and it'll make more sense, obviously, when we discuss Warnock and his future later on, but do you think that the sort of criticism of Neil Warnock is maybe too harsh? Do you think that, we're creating chances? It is on, there's the onus on the players to score these chances? I'm sure if you ask Neil Warnock, and obviously he makes it very clear in press conferences that nothing's ever his fault. And of course, there's always another reason behind these poor results. Do you think that, the chances are the reason behind our poor start of the season?
It is a strange one, because I do feel to a point that some of these chances are created through individual brilliance, really, more than because of the way we play. I think you look at Watmore's goal on Tuesday night, and that really comes from him just taking a pot shot. Really, he doesn't really have any right to find the top corner from there, and he does. So in other games, I think sometimes goals go in because of the way we play, maybe with flick-ons. Looking back to Bristol City at home, where we take a set piece, Uche flicks it on, and Crooks comes sliding in and puts it in the corner. But I do think that the criticism is justified, really. I think it's such a strange one, because he's gone there the other day to Hull with the same exact personnel from Tuesday night that put in that performance against Sheffield United, and they haven't shown any sort of similarity when it comes to performance level that they showed on Tuesday night. Whether that's because he can't G them up for the game, like I did possibly suggest that he does seem to struggle to G us up for away games. Our away form this season is quite dismal, really. I mean, we've played 5 away games this season, and we've taken 5 points from a possible 15, which isn't really great. So yeah, I do think some of the criticism is justified, but we do create some chances through the system, but we do also create chances through individual brilliance. So I think it just really depends on how you look at it, really.
Yeah, I think on that, just in terms of my perspective, obviously there is criticisms towards Warnock, and I think the main one being just sort of answering my own question, really. We have these moments in games, and as we've spoken about in the past, it's always 1, 2, or 3. It's never, sort of 6 or 7 chances where you come away from a game and think, we've had 7 or 8 chances, and good chances that we've created and we should have scored. And I think if that was the case, there would probably be a lot less pressure, and, a lot more sort of stepping back and almost looking at the players as opposed to the manager. And, that is the criticism, really, probably the biggest one at the moment, that we don't have a style of play. We don't have that word again, identity. We don't have, passing patterns. We don't really have any link between midfield and attack. It is simply, as you say, the odd flick on or the odd piece of individual brilliance that gets us that chance. And obviously that leads us into, do we think a different man could, change that, and could be the man that changes our style of play and makes us have those 6 or 7 chances that I was talking about?
We have spoken about different pieces of discontent amongst the fan base over the last few weeks when it comes to Neil Warnock's position as manager. But it is quite strange. I suppose his post-match comments make it all the stranger, with his comments saying how he can't do much more with the squad, which I think is a very weird thing to say, and will not be doing anyone around the club's morale any good, really, saying that this is all he can do with us. Yes, we did have chances, but we are not one of the sides in the division that will go out there and absolutely batter a team when it comes to chances. We have, as you say, those couple of chances, maybe a handful at most in a game, and we simply can't be one of those teams, unfortunately, having so minimal chances just because we are so wasteful in front of goal. Really, I think the Spirra chance is very wasteful. Really, he should be hitting the target at least. Same goes for that Tavernier chance. I think the Paddy McNair chance is probably, well, it was a shot on target, so it probably goes down as one of our better chances because the keeper was actually tested. So I can understand why people will be looking to Neil Warnock and wondering whether his position is on the line, really. And I think, of course, after a performance on Saturday, emotions are high, and watching that performance, it was probably better than a few away performances that we have seen in the league so far this season. But those chances not being put away, and the goals being conceded in quite a strange manner and quite a lucky manner, has everyone feeling a bit upset, and I think everyone's eyes are straight towards the manager, really, and that's just how football works, really. Football fans are fickle. I think me and you last week after the Reading game, we got made a bit silly because we may have jumped in to saying that Warnock may be not the right man at the moment. I think we may have jumped in too quick. We may have thought that he could have turned things around with that Sheffield United game, but we did say if we don't follow that result up with another performance of a similar ilk and another good result, then the performance on Tuesday night goes amiss, really, and doesn't really matter. And it's happened again, unfortunately.
Do you know what, Nathan? From that little monologue of yours, I was almost starting to think that you'd gone full circle, really, and almost were now willing to give Warnock another chance and a bit longer. Is that what you're saying, or have I misinterpreted that? I don't want to pressure you into saying, in or out, but potentially now sort of changed of the opinion that potentially we've actually got to look at some of the chances that we're missing as opposed to the manager and the tactics that he employs.
I think my point is, I think that it goes together, really. I think the way we set up doesn't help when it comes to us trying to create chances. And I think with the way we set up and the minimal amount of chances that we do create in the game, it doesn't work for us because of how wasteful we are in front of goal. I think if we were a side that could have 3 chances in a game and finish 1 or 2 of them, then Warnock's that man, really. We seem to set up relatively okay defensively on Saturday. We conceded a goal, really, that was a very good strike from Keane Lewis Potter, and it's unfortunate that it comes off Lumley and finds its way into the back of the net. But we seem to be okay defensively in recent weeks. I know we did concede 2 goals, but that Wilkes goal does come from us throwing men forward, and he did have half a pitch to run into with the ball at his feet, and he's obviously going to go through on goal, especially considering he did come off the bench, and he is a lot quicker than Lee Peltier, unfortunately. So as a whole, I think Warnock may have ran his race, unfortunately, just because of the way we set up. I think that we can't finish chances. That's just the top and bottom of it. We need more chances to finish because our conversion rate just simply isn't good enough.
Well, here's something perhaps to think about, Nathan, and for listeners and viewers to think about. Obviously, Nottingham Forest parted ways with Chris Hughton and brought in Steve Cooper, who, of course, similar to Neil Warnock and Chris Hughton, obviously who I'm talking about, is, more typically associated with thinking about being solid defensively first, and picking up results by grinding them out and not playing sort of easy on the eye football and really doing a job on teams, which in fairness is what we saw from Boro probably last season, particularly in the first half of last season. That was for me when it felt most like we were a Neil Warnock team. If we went one goal up, I never really felt like we're going to throw this game away. I almost felt like, I don't want to say under Karanka because his record was ridiculous in the grand scheme of things and ridiculously good, from taking the lead and not losing out on points. But going back to Forest, obviously, they've now brought in Steve Cooper, and I think they're now 3 wins on the spin. They are scoring almost freely. And, we played Forest. They had chances against us. They didn't take those chances. Do you think that perhaps, as you say, it's a confidence thing? Is it a case of we just need more chances? And I know that's what you've just said, but it's something to think about, isn't it? That obviously Steve Cooper and a change of manager, it's still relatively early days for Steve Cooper at Forest, but from being bottom of the league, they're now within 1 point of Middlesbrough, and there's been a drastic turnaround just because of the style of play that they are now playing.
Yeah, I think it has helped Forest, especially with the change of manager. I think that squad needed galvanising, really, and he certainly done that. They set up with the back three, and he's got a way of playing instilled into them where the wing backs especially know when to go and know when to stay, and they have that balance in midfield down to a T. And the attacking players have seemed to get forward in numbers. From what I saw against Birmingham in their game on Saturday, the forward players get forward in numbers when they go forward, and that's something that we don't have. When we attack, it seems that we have the front 2 or front 3 players, and that's it really. We don't attack forward in numbers. We don't throw men forward when we need a goal. It just seems like a lack of urgency, really. A lack of urgency to get into a lead, and as I say, if we fail to go into a lead, I do think that we usually fall foul to other sides getting their 1 or 2 chances a game against us and putting them away. And I think if Warnock was to go, I think a new manager would hopefully provide us with that new manager bounce that seems to happen quite regularly when a new manager enters a football club. And if that bounce is good, then hopefully that could continue on, and you can hopefully a club can string a few runs together, and maybe we do need that.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously it helps that Nottingham Forest have got, flying wing backs. They've got some lad at the moment that seems to be playing quite well called Jed Spence. I don't know if you've heard of him, but yeah, he scored at the weekend and he seems to be getting some rave reviews off the Forest fans. So maybe he's a player that we could maybe look at in the future, Nathan. I'm not sure if you know much about him.
Yeah, I mean, typical.
Yeah, it is typical, isn't it? I mean, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. We now have, I think I worked out yesterday, and it's fortunate that we're going into the international break. We now only have 2 fit senior defenders in Sol Bamba and Mark Bowler. So yeah, if we'd have had a game coming up this week, then it certainly would have been interesting to see what defence we'd have managed to put out. So obviously there, you obviously mentioned a lack of identity, a lack of chances. And for me, it is also just going back again to the game. And I don't know why I'm doing it to myself, because it'll only make me angry and upset once we've finished this podcast and I've got to listen to it back. It comes from the lack of ideas. And I think for anyone that understands the way that, a manager works and why a football team has a manager, those are the sort of things that you work on the training ground, passing patterns and certain movements that create chances and, players get used to in a system which is fitted to them to help them create chances and score goals. And it's just so clear to me to see that that's everything that we lack. We have no pattern of play. And it's just, again, the pattern of play, the lack of chances that we create, it just all falls back on that same word again. And the people listening and watching are probably going to get bored of me saying it. It's identity. We just don't have an identity. And I think it's something that we've lacked for a long time now. And for me, obviously, we'll go on to the Twitter questions and again discuss Warnock's future. But an identity is something that I just crave so much as a Middlesbrough fan. We've lacked it probably since Karanka, and that is really a sad thing to think about, considering when Karanka left this football club.
Yeah, it's been a long time, and I think for the future of the club, we certainly need to be looking at not necessarily even instilling just a single manager into the club. We need to look to instill a certain way of playing. As you say, identity is the key word. We need to instill that certain way of playing, whether that be free-flowing attacking football, throwing men forward, trying to outscore teams, or whether that be being very defensively resolute and looking to hit teams on a break. So I think that certainly needs looking at, and I think hopefully head of football, whatever that means, Kieran Scott will be looking to find a way to make that possible.
Yeah. So just moving on to Twitter questions, and obviously we were bombarded after that result. I think it was always going to be the case. Obviously, with Neil Warnock under pressure, there's a lot of people that want to have their say. And the first one I picked out was from Matt. Obviously, as part of the tweet that we always put out after the game, I just simply captioned it, what needs to change? And his first response was the manager. So, I mean, that's one part of his answer. But just going on from that, he followed that up with recent comments regarding the squad are extremely worrying. Saying all this, he can do what he tells the players, and together they're only good enough for 15th, and that'll only kill confidence. I mean, speaking of killing confidence, he's also just added on the end of that, I can only imagine it's not great for the dressing room at the moment. And I mean, last night, I think I tweeted out about the Boro banter era, and for those that know, over the years, some of the banter moments that this club seems to have just gone through. I think it hit potentially one of its peaks last night. Even the under 23s are now calling the pro club Warnock's rejects. Yeah, it from the outside looking in, and of course we don't know, it could be completely wrong, and I don't want to be that person that sort of spreads false allegations and negativity, but I think when Matt mentioned that the dressing room probably isn't that nice of a place to be at the moment, I tend to agree with what Matt has to say, and I'd potentially, without again making up a rumour, because I certainly don't want to do that, but I'd probably say that if I was to guess, that the morale and the dressing room currently is not as together as probably Neil Warnock would want it to be.
Possibly, but I think it's one of those where you don't really want to get dragged into that. Of course, we're not a part of that dressing room. For all we know, it could be one that everyone loves each other, and they all want the best for everyone, and they want the best for the manager and the coach and staff and all that comes with that. So I don't think we need to get all too dragged into that. But the comments in the press, not only this weekend but throughout the full season, are enough to kill anyone's confidence. I mean, they're not directed at me, and they're killing any sort of confidence I have in this football club. Really, I think saying that's all he can do with the players is almost just saying, well, what can I do? Like, what's the point in me being at this
If
football
it
club?
doesn't fill us as fans with confidence, then how must Steve Gibson and Kieran Scott be feeling now? And even the players, when the man that's meant to be in charge of you is saying, I'm at the stage now where I just don't really know what can I do, then it's hardly inspiring, is it, Nathan?
No, it's certainly not inspiring. But we do know how Warnock can play the press, and he could be in the boardroom with Steve Gibson saying exactly what we need to hear and exactly what he can do to change the fortunes of the team. So I think it's one where I don't want to get too carried away with it, but on the outset, looking at the comment just for what the comment says, it does seem to kill a lot of confidence, and it certainly would be if you're a player just looking at the comment itself, it would kill morale, and that is not it's not what I really want to see as a fan.
Yeah. I think you summed it up perfectly there. I think, it's not only the comments about, I don't know what else I can do. I think, as Matt says, with the dressing room, and again, by no means, I think it's important that we emphasise that by no means is this us saying that we think that the dressing room is all gone toxic. It's certainly not. But with the comments that he's made about, obviously, he doesn't know what else he can do, and the comments he made about individuals last week, it does make you think. It does. I can't imagine those comments going down well, but of course, it's not our place to say whether they have or they haven't.
Yeah, and I mean the comments throughout the full season have been just disastrous almost, really. And yeah, as I said, we do know he can play the press quite well, and he could be in, for example, Pierre Rosier saying that he's doing a lot of things right, and that he's just not getting the game time at the minute because he's integrating him in and what have you. But being omitted from the squad when I don't think that he's came out and said that he was injured or any other sort of reasoning behind his omission from the squad other than because he has a problem with him. And I can't understand the issue why. Of course, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but Pierro's only been here for 3 months, and to be omitted from various squads so far this season is nothing short of weird to see.
Yeah, I mean, I seen in the Gazette, obviously. I think he briefly sort of mentioned that Martin's picked up a little niggle, but I think everyone by now sort of knows when it's a little niggle, it's often probably not actually a little niggle, and it's probably something, something else. And it's again not for us to say what that may be, but the whole sort of trying to almost get one over on the fans and not pull the wool over our eyes, but sort of, saying something without saying something is the best way of describing it. When you're saying about little niggles or just really sort of skipping over the question, it more or less normally means that there's something else going on. But again, we don't want to be drawn into that. So moving on from Matt's comment, we also got another comment from We Are Boro, and he said, it's easy to say the manager is at blame, but the whole philosophy of the club needs to change. Regardless of which manager we have, our players slow, laboured, boring and toothless. The type of manager that Gibson needs is pretty much the opposite to what we currently have. So, I mean, he's, in one way, the comment is sort of said that it's not Warnock's fault completely, which, you know, that's something that we'll discuss. But also, you know, if we are to change managers, we need to go away from that typical sort of Neil Warnock or Chris Hughton or Sam Allardyce. I mean, the list goes on. The sort of old school managers that, you know, have been around for a while. Firstly, I just want to talk about, obviously, the comment using the word philosophy. And I think that's interesting for what we talk about. It's similar again, and I run the risk of sounding boring. Philosophy relates back to identity, and obviously, you know, it's ironically, it sort of goes back to those famous quotes of the golden thread that Adrian Bevan was talking about on Woodgate's announcement. So yeah, in terms of the philosophy of the club, I think we've kind of almost covered it already, but do you think, let me phrase this question differently. Do you think with the addition of Kieran Scott, and obviously there's lots of rumours that potentially, you know, there's pressure building and all those sorts of things. Do you think with the addition of Scott, it would be a certainty to say that he will try and implement a complete different philosophy when Warnock goes, whether that be soon or whether that be at the end of the season?
I don't think it's a certainty because of the way I've seen this club run in my lifetime, really. I think Scott's past. I know he hasn't been in this role that he is in now, in the head of football, with everything that comes with that. He's been head of recruitment at Norwich, but he's worked under Daniel Farke, who is a foreign manager. We've only had one foreign manager in our history, which was successful to a point, but did end in tears. But I think every manager will have a period where they struggle, and when they are on the verge of being sacked or leaving their role as manager, they struggle that rough patch. So I think on a whole, I don't expect it to be a certainty that he tries to change the philosophy just because of the way I've seen us run in recent years. Warnock, Pulis, et al. Really, and I think Gibson has quite a history of appointing British managers, certainly, and certainly ones that seem to play relative. I'm not going to call it negative football, but that seem to be very defensively minded rather than the type of manager that we've seen Scott work with at Norwich. Like I keep looking at Norwich because it's the most recent case study, if you say it that way, with Farke being
successful job. Sorry, Nathan, for
Farke being that foreign manager that when in the Championship they aim to outscore opponents. Really, they do have a good defensive record, but more often than not, Norwich in the Championship would dismiss teams by comfortably a 2-goal margin, possibly even 3 or 4. So I don't expect it to happen, really, because based on our history. But if it did happen, I'd be all for an experiment.
Yeah, And to be honest, the final one that I picked out, because obviously and understandably, a lot of the replies were just simply in response to the question, what needs to change? And a lot of people said the manager, but we do try and look to look into things a little bit deeper than just pinning the blame on Neil Warnock on this podcast. Numerous comments talked about the missed chances, of course, and we have also sort of covered that already, really. You also mentioned the Warnock. I wanted to go to it at the end, but you sort of you got it in there early, Nathan, and talked about the Warnock's comment about I can't do much more. I think just finishing up, really, we're going into the international break. There's 2 weeks now. Do you think it is time for change? Sorry, goodness me, I couldn't quite get my words out there.
I'm not quite going to jump in two-footed and give a proper verdict, because I think that Warnock, given time to integrate the players that he has signed in to a system that may eventually click, and the key word is may, because we have now played 11 games this season and we haven't seen any real signs of consistency with the way that we play. We tried different formations and different formulas when it comes to being somewhat defensively resolute, but also being able to create chances. We haven't seen that consistency, and that is really what you need to be a good side in this division. You need consistency, because the games do come thick and fast, and you do need to be able to string results together, and we haven't been able to do that, unfortunately, so far this season. So on a whole, looking at results, you could say that the manager's run its course, but with only 10 games through so far this season, I know that is we're coming to a quarter of the season done already, which is already unfathomable that it's that far through the season. I can't get over that. But
yeah, it seems to have gone very quickly, hasn't it?
Yeah, but I think that you can look at it from Steve Gibson's perspective, that he has invested in players over the summer that Neil Warnock wanted to bring in, and he may have taken some insight from Kieran Scott. Warnock did say, especially with Saliki, that he has listened to different people and did bring him in on that basis. So maybe he needs time to get it right, but the signs so far aren't very promising.
Yeah, and just to really jump onto the other side of the argument, if you like, and sort of throw another question at you. If and you're saying you don't want to say for definite, how long do you give it before you would be wanting to make a change? As you say, we're 11 games in now. I think we've been knocked out the Carabao Cup. We are I don't want to say rapidly, because I think it's only 6 points between us in the playoffs now. But how long before you leave it and, we'll potentially drop more points if this form continues after the international break, and, we'll lose ground on the playoffs and potentially run the risk of wasting time and wasting a season? How long before you then say, right, well, this is enough?
I think, yes, we're in an international break now, and if you're looking for a change, you do want that period of time where you can integrate new ideas and have that time with playing staff to be able to do that. But I think for me, we have a run of fixtures just after this international break that I look at, and I think that I mean, I think most games in the Championship are winnable anyway. But we've got Peterborough, who are down there struggling. We have Barnsley, who are down there struggling with a new manager this season. Cardiff, who have lost 5 games on the spin under Mick McCarthy and are having a bit of a ding-dong with Mick McCarthy himself over there. And I think it is then Birmingham City, who haven't been great in recent games. So there's 4 games there in the space of a 2-week period. And I think those games, because we don't know what's going on with, especially with the comments Warnock's made and fans singing, you're going to get sacked in the morning on Saturday. We don't know how long, if at all, Warnock will be in the job for long. But if he is in the job after this international break, I think those 4 games are crucial, really, for not only Warnock being able to keep his job, but crucial for our season, really.
Yeah, I think obviously, as you say, we've got what you would look at normally and think a pretty favourable run of fixtures that you'd like to think we could capitalise on. But for me, obviously, you look at Blackpool at home, you look at Hull away, you've beat Sheffield United at home. Obviously, you've got to win your home games in this league if you want to achieve anything. And you look at them 3 games, and out of a possible 9 points, we've picked up 3. So, without saying those words, I think that probably tells a story of its own. So, Nathan, unless there is anything, that you want to add, unless there's, maybe it's a question you want to ask me, I don't know. I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up. So, Nathan, anything else?
Yeah, I'll just ask you. What do you think about? Is it time to make a change from your perspective?
I think for any people that have listened to this podcast, they've probably got an idea of the way I'm feeling at the moment. For any of those that may follow me on Twitter as well after the game, I sort of made my feelings clear that I do think it's time for a change. And, that is in no way me being disrespectful to Neil Warnock, because I'm very, very thankful for what he did for us after Jonathan Woodgate was sacked. I think it would be, disrespectful being one, but naive to just sort of not even think about the fact that he pretty much saved us from relegation. And of course, I'll always have time for Warnock for that. I think last season, we were very good at the start of the season, and it petered out. The signings weren't, as successful as probably may have hoped for in January. But I think with my realistic head on and my sort of, if I was in Steve Gibson's shoes, and after employing Kieran Scott, if I'm in Gibson's shoes now, I'm thinking, well, we're quite evidently trying to go in a different direction. We've signed players from the continent, we've gone after Rodrigo Muniz, albeit it was unsuccessful, but, there was still intent to bring him in. We've brought in Martin Piero, and of course he hasn't really hit the ground running yet. He's had problems, and, he wasn't even in the squad at the weekend. And, Gibson, credit to him, put his hand in his pocket this window, really, and sort of, for the first time in a few years, really backed Warnock. And from what I've seen so far, I personally just don't believe there's enough reason there and an argument there to warrant Warnock staying any longer. And that's my personal opinion, of course. Everyone's got their own. But for me, going in, winning national break as well, I think with respect, it seems, ridiculous me saying that, because obviously I am talking about someone losing the job at the end of the day. But I just think for this football club, it would be a complete and utter waste of a season if we prolong this. And I just don't think I've seen enough to suggest that he can turn it around and that we can be, a stereotypical Neil Warnock team that can go and win a load of games on the bounce that are 1-0 or, nick a few 2-1s here and there. I just don't see that personally. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it, Nathan.
Well, I guess we'll see where we are in, is it a week's time when we preview Peterborough and see where we are and see if anything has changed.
Yeah, of course, Nathan. I mean, we're recording this on Monday night, and not that there's been anything concrete, but there's been a few whispers here and there, which you can never really take too seriously. But saying that he may be going, but it's all very much take everything with an extra large pinch of salt. So if something does happen, of course we'll jump on and chat about it and talk about the future. But until then, it would be pointless to suggest that that's going to happen. So yeah, between now and the international break, obviously, we're not going to talk about the Peterborough game in this podcast. I think we'll do something closer to the time. But yeah, as always, thanks again, Nathan, for your time, and thanks again for the continued support that we've been receiving on audio and YouTube. Of course, as always, I'd love it. Me and Nathan would both love it if you dropped a comment and subscribed on YouTube, I should say. And of course, on all audio platforms, download us, give us a review on Apple Podcast, all those nice things. So yeah, from me and Nathan, that has been another episode of the Boropolis Podcast, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts on it very soon.